Hey, welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful promise from the Bible. It's one of those promises that offers real safety and hope, especially when it feels like everything is falling apart. We're going to be looking at Psalm 9 and this central, incredible idea that God is a refuge for the oppressed.
And here it is. This is the verse that everything we're talking about today is built on. Psalm 9, verse 9. Now, this isn't just a nice thought, right? It's framed as a rock-solid promise. So what does it actually mean to have a refuge, a stronghold when trouble hits? Let's get into it.
So, to really get the weight of this promise, we have to understand where it comes from. And you might be surprised to learn this isn't a song written from a place of comfort and peace. No, this was forged right in the middle of a painful, difficult struggle.
Yeah, King David wrote this while he was facing very real enemies, very real hardship. And yet, what does he do? He chooses to praise. He literally stops, looks back at how God has shown up for him before, and he uses that memory to fuel his trust for whatever's coming next. That makes this promise of a refuge feel so much more raw and real, doesn't it?
Okay, so let's jump into our first big lesson here. What does it actually mean to find this refuge right now, in the middle of our troubles?
So when David uses that word stronghold, what is he really getting at? Let's break down the immediate, practical meaning of that powerful image he's painting for us.
Well, first off, it means God actively takes a side. He stands with those who are being crushed. Think about how radical that is. This isn't some distant God. This is a king who identifies with the vulnerable. Second, a stronghold is a real place. It's a destination, a safe place you can run to for protection. And third, it's an action. God doesn't just open the door. He actually steps in to actively shield the people who come to him.
Okay, that sounds great, but why does it matter to you and me? In our day-to-day lives, when we feel overwhelmed or maybe just completely overlooked.
Here's why it's so huge. It's a direct answer to that feeling of being alone or completely unseen. The message here is that nobody is too broken, nobody is too weak, and no one is too hidden for God's attention. He sees you. He is close, and there's absolutely no dark moment, no pit so deep that you can't come to him right where you are.
And this is where this big idea becomes super practical. So, how do you do this? Well, it breaks down into 3 steps. First, try to make it a habit to go to God first, not as a last resort. Second, be brutally honest with him about your pain. He can handle it. He embraces it. And third, trust that he's with you, even when it feels like nothing is changing. And that leads to a really tough but very honest question. It's one thing to feel God's presence, which is amazing, but what about when the injustice, the oppression, the trouble itself just keeps going? What do you do when justice feels impossibly far away?
And that brings us perfectly to the second major lesson we can pull from Psalm 9, trusting in ultimate justice. This part speaks directly to that deep human desire for things to be made right, and the incredible difficulty of having to wait for it.
So, when David starts talking about God's justice in this psalm, how big is his vision? What is the core truth that he's holding on to that gives him so much confidence? Here's where we see the bigger picture. David's confidence isn't just wishful thinking. It's rooted in the belief that God is ultimately in control of everything. Yeah, evil might look powerful right now, but its defeat is absolutely certain. And on a deeply personal level, God does not forget his people. This hits one of our deepest fears, doesn't it? The fear of being forgotten. This says, no, that will never happen.
So why is this long-term perspective so important? Why does it matter when what we really want is for things to be fair, like right now?
It matters because it asks us to hold our limited perspective up against God's infinite one. We see a tiny snapshot of the story. He sees the entire thing, from beginning to end. Our desire for justice now is totally understandable, but the promise here is in a justice that is absolutely perfect, a timing that is completely wise, and a God who is 100% faithful to his word. He will keep every single promise.
So, how are we supposed to live in that tension? It really comes down to 3 choices. First, we can choose to rest in God's sovereignty instead of trying to fix everything ourselves. Second, we can choose to wait on him without letting bitterness take root. And third, we can choose to keep doing the right thing even when it looks like the wrong thing is winning.
Okay, so let's bring it all together. The really crucial point here is how these 2 big ideas, immediate refuge and ultimate justice, they combine. They aren't 2 separate promises. They actually form one complete, incredibly powerful assurance. And this is the final word. This is the big takeaway. It's not a question, it's a declaration. It's the core belief that, in the end, God's justice and His goodness will have the final, definitive say over all the pain and all the evil in this world.
So really, it all boils down to these three simple, active commands that kind of summarize everything we've talked about. Run to Him for that immediate refuge. Trust His timing for that ultimate justice. And rest in His strength through it all.
And that leaves us with one last question to take with us. Because it's not just about understanding this stuff, it's about living it. So as you go about your week, where in your own life, in your own struggles, do you need to consciously, actively find refuge in Him?